You know, a lot of Clottey fans out there that said, "Hey, my man got robbed." Look, your man's already calling out Paul Williams, calling him a weak welter. I think he knows that. You know, he couldn't do it, or I don't know what it was. I thought if he really pressed upon it and was more aggressive, he would have maybe taken that fight, or you know, or at least it would have been more controversial. You know, I call it controversial.
Well, if he would have won the last round, he probably would have won.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it could have been one round either way.
Yeah.
It just seemed to go for Cotto. Of course, he's calling out Paul Williams because no one else is going to want to fight him because he's tough and he doesn't rake in a lot of ticket sales. Paul Williams can't find a fight at 147. I think it's a good matchup. I mean, you know, I don't know if Paul Williams can make 147.
I agree. No, well, you know, I've heard that Paul Williams...
He hasn't made it in, what, 2 or 3 years?
I saw I read an interview somewhere online where Paul Williams said, "Hey, look, I will go down to 147 as the preference, you know, of weight class right now because that's where the money's at."
Yeah.
But you know what? Again, you go where the money's at, and you know he's still sort of avoided. What I would do if I were Paul Williams' management would say, do another fight up there, fight like a Sergio Martinez or somebody like that.
Yeah, 154.
And you know, and beat him impressively like you did with Winky, and shut him out or do what you do, and then let that welterweight division sort of work itself out, because you talk about Paul Williams and Berto and Mosley and guys like Collazo still out there, and you know there's a lot of matchups going to be made. You know, what about Shane Mosley? He's probably not going to get Pacquiao because there's more money and it's an easier fight to be made
with
Cotto and Aram as the manager of both. And you know, Shane Mosley, Paul Williams, you could see that happening as the two most avoided men in boxing. Again, you know, interesting fight. I'd like to see that, but I could just as well see, you know, Mosley-Berto, which almost happened apparently before the Mosley-Margarito fight was made. And, you know, so that's been talked about before. And, you know, again, that's what I would do if I was Paul Williams and not Paul Williams. But I think that his preference is to be down 144 and 47 as far as the big money fights. But I just don't see really who's going to wind up fighting him unless it's, you know, maybe it's
Clottey. Someone else that can't get a big fight.
You got
Clottey or Mosley.
You got Cotto and Pacquiao now. You have.
Although I think Mosley and Pacquiao would be a better fight. Well, I think Mosley could beat Pacquiao.
Yeah.
Cotto,
well,
I don't think he's going to have it.
Yeah, I think that again, you know, two great fights. I think maybe if you're Pacquiao, you think, hey, you know what? That might be a better fight for them a little down the road. I think Pacquiao's taking the fight not only because he was in the crowd there, we saw him at ringside with his little golfer's cap on, watching. I don't think it was, he said, well, it's the excitement and all that with Cotto's fans, you know, but I think, and what he brings to the table with pay-per-view numbers and being a big event, but I also think that he saw something in him that was probably beatable.
Yeah, and you know what, if he doesn't fight Mosley now, when's he going to fight him when he's 40? I mean, well, Cotto's 28, he could fight Cotto down the road. He could, and again, you're going to fight Mosley, fight him now, or else you're going to beat an old Mosley, right, and it's not going to have the same luster. It's not the same.
That's true, but in the end, it's a notch on, you know, the he's one of the guys that you're going to read on his list of opponents and say, wow, he fought all the top guys, whether it was in 2009 or 2010. And again, that's what you do if you're Pacquiao's management. If you're Mosley's manager, you do what he's doing already and pull out the big guns with De La Hoya and oh yeah,
the toughest guy in the division. Right? That I don't think Pacquiao would have fought Margarito.
Well,
I mean, he wasn't calling him. You know what I'm saying? There was no hint of that because everyone assumed.
Well, you got to remember that Pacquiao's not exactly your typical fighter who calls people out and who does that sort of tactic. And
no one was calling for it either. They all assumed that he would not be able to hurt him and eventually get knocked out by the bigger guy. Whereas Mosley, we all thought he was probably going to get, you know, have a few good rounds and probably eventually get stopped in the later rounds, and he ended up winning every round and knocked out the guy that was that you couldn't knock out.
There's a lot of people who also think that, you know, Mosley Cotto, you know, that deserves a rematch.
Yeah, that was a good fight.
Close. I mean, talk about, hey, going old school 15 rounds. He might have beaten Cotto. You know, I think again, you know, what I saw and I take away from that Cotto Clottey fight is, again, Clottey doesn't have the heart of a champion. Cotto does. But even with that heart of a champion, you know, you can't have a chin of a champion forever. And I think he did lose something in the Margarito fight with heavy hands there, and that he'll maybe never get back. you always keep that lion instinct in him and that champion instinct, and that's why he didn't quit, and he came back and he took that fight even though it was close. So